Good afternoon. Thank you to P2P for having me today and the insights from the other panelists. Hopefully my presentation isn't too redundant after everything that's been shared in the last 2 days. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm going to be filling in for Fairbour, so I'm definitely hoping to be as entertaining as he is. This afternoon, I'm going to talk about the importance of local research and provide reflections on some of the challenges posed by the current funding model that have been identified by our membership. In my role at Alberta's umbrella organization of settlements and integration organizations across the province, 2 questions come up frequently, if not on a daily basis. How do we help organizations make informed decisions? And how do we know if the interventions our sector undertakes result in social change? As an umbrella organization, our mandate is to build capacity of the settlement and integration organizations and ultimately to positively affect outcomes. In order to fulfill our mandate, ASA endeavors to support its members and the broader sector in delivering a program that is impactful and to convey that impact in a way that is both quantifiable and human. In other words, we must help them to understand the emerging needs of their client population and make informed decisions. Local research initiatives allow us to delve deeper into the settlement outcomes and needs being achieved in any given place. So before I get into the national, regional, and provincial research themes, which you guys have already heard about, I want to dedicate some time to the way by which research is resourced. As most of you know, Canada's settlement sector, settlement and integration environment has been in a state of near constant change since 2012. Yet one aspect that's remained surprisingly predictable has been a need for an organization to adapt and to address funding constraints and challenges. In other words, to do more with less. Diverse literature points to a multitude of constraints and challenges related to the current settlement funding model. This model aligns with the principles of new public management and holds cost efficiency at its center, at the center of service provision. Some of the features of this model include an increased use of short-term project funding models, which translate to a lack of long-term or core funding, an absence of viable resource alternatives, and rigidity associated with accountability and reporting. Furthermore, this funding model is often driven by government priorities with little input from SPOs and is focused on more short-term measurable results instead of holistic long-term results. The influence of this model on research is a lack of organizational stability and capacity, which can result in an impaired ability to proactively meet the evolving needs of newcomers, particularly the most vulnerable. While it's important to acknowledge that there are many expert consortiums, committees, multi-stakeholder partnerships, universities, research institutions, and a huge amount of projects that are ongoing of high caliber in the settlement and integration sector, the lack of funding to conduct research at the local service provider level certainly has huge implications for the work that we're doing. The challenges described in the literature truly resonate with ASA's membership. In fact, each year ASA surveys its membership to find out what its research needs are and what would be most beneficial to them as things emerge. This year, the survey uncovered the fact that 60% of ASA's membership reported they have little to no research capacity, and that they struggle with the capacity to do formal research, and if they do, it tends to be on an ad hoc basis. They also told us that they contribute to national research projects. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the priorities and themes. During this conference, we've had the opportunity to explore a wide range of national, regional, and likely local priorities in our different workshops and sessions. The themes that I've included here fall in line with P2P's framework on the priorities for this year. There's 6 of them, I think. This includes economic, social, and cultural integration, multi-stakeholder partnerships, temporary residence, the role of the sector, health and well-being, and certainly location decisions, vulnerable populations, which we've been discussing at length. All of these are essential to help us delineate our work and cooperate across provincial boundaries, but the regional and provincial themes provided provide a more nuanced perspective on the issues affecting specific communities. In Alberta, our membership tells us that they contribute, as I said, to national research projects, but yet this research does not always reflect their place-based experience and cannot always inform program-level decisions. In yesterday's discussion of regional research needs in the Prairie section, some salient themes came forward, which I just wanted to note again, that included holistic approaches to mental health, perspectives of integration and inclusivity, indicators of success in settlement and integration, First Nations and newcomer relations, settlement service provision in remote communities, which is especially important in Alberta, and the intergenerational effects of integration. As we move to a more local perspective, it becomes evident that communities across Canada share much in common, but they also have specific and place-based realities that cannot be denied. For example, the issues facing temporary foreign workers and those without status in remote northern communities, such as Fort McMurray, are unique and often fraught with difficulty. Across Alberta, our membership identified the following research priorities: Alberta Francophone communities, the use of technology, I will talk more about that later, temporary foreign workers, secondary migration, outcomes measurement, sexual health and diversity, support for vulnerable populations, including LGBTQ refugees, youth, seniors, and women, and recently the mental health support for refugees. And unfortunately, I forgot to include housing on this list, but it's another very important issue that we need to look at provincially. I want to share with you an example of how local research can be impactful and has proven to be instrumental in informing decision-making at the program level in Alberta. Last year, before beginning a research project called Courage to Begin, Building Capacity of Immigrant Service Providers in Sexual Health, the sector was anecdotally discussing the need for sexual health and sexual diversity support for newcomers. Several early adopters, such as Calgary Catholic Immigration Society and Calgary Immigrant Women's Association, had built strategic partnerships with Calgary Sexual Health Centre to respond to this need. Yet there was no provincial settlement research to set the context for this particular intervention. That's when the Courage to Begin project began. The result of a mixed methods project combining survey and semi-structured interviews revealed that the need for this work was prevalent not just in the major urban centers such as Calgary, but that there was an acute need for support in rural and northern areas. In fact, we were surprised by the findings, especially because of the prevailing silence and stigma associated with these issues. Speaking on sexual health and gender diversity, one practitioner reflected, "This is a very sensitive issue, very difficult to talk about. People feel threatened and at risk, and it's all under the table." Speaking with regards to the work of dealing with sexual health and sexual diversity. Yet 46% of respondents reported to us that gender and sexual diversity is a priority in their work, and 51% of respondents expressed that they had a fairly high level of comfort in this issue. So this brought to our attention that there was need for further research and that we really needed to understand the environment before we began designing programs or supporting the work of our organizations to build those programs. Okay, can I have a little more? Okay. So the findings of this project really shifted our perspective, and the overall resounding discovery was that there was a need for further professional development, as well as a need to partner with sexual health experts to get this work done and to create meaningful partnerships that would allow us to do this work and address the needs of newcomers. For us, the project represented a significant and strategic step towards beginning work with this vulnerable population and creating a space of dialogue among often disparate stakeholders who would not normally talk to each other, by bringing evidence instead of anecdotes to the table when developing their programming. In our case, this is helping to inform us as we consider piloting professional development in this area. So, our reflections as a capacity building organization is that in order to address the evolving settlement and integration environment, there's a need to shift the terms of engagement around research, to create research that's nimble and responsive and place-based, to be attentive of the needs of frontline workers, and to embed research into all areas of settlement and integration work, such as professional development, evaluation, decision-making, at both the policy and program level. to assist organizations to make a strong case about their impact on newcomers and inform them as they adjust their programming. And lastly, to foster connections, obviously, between national researchers and institutions and local organizations. We look to leading practices like that of BC that has a research council and hope that we can do something similar to inform our research. Our membership tells us that research informs governance at different levels. This is just an example of that. And therefore, we need to be more responsive to their needs. In order to shift the terms of engagement that I discussed earlier, ASA is developing a robust integrated learning community for settlement practitioners, embedding research into professional development to build capacity of local organizations so that they can do research themselves, and fostering action research at the service provider level for continuous improvement, and to understand the alignment between federal and provincial policy to help inform decision makers, and finally, to understand the needs of these vulnerable communities in a local context. And I want to conclude by talking about our experience with the development of a learning community that is attempting to invert this pyramid that I discussed earlier. It works as a resource hub for settlement practitioners, and it's great that OCASI discussed their experience with learning communities earlier, because we've learned from them in that we're fortunate to have their learnings from this process to be able to create a tool that incentivizes more engagement, embeds research into professional development so that it is incorporated into our settlement practitioner competencies framework, because we understand that frontline workers and practitioners are very busy and they need a reason to go and find resources and a place to do that, but we also know that they won't do it unless it's tied into their professional growth. And so to that end, we're incorporating the learning community into both our in-person and online module delivery, certification, and training. In closing, the learning community is just one example of local and regional solutions to answer the question I posed earlier. How do we help organizations make informed decisions? And how do we know if what we did made an impact, if we were actually impacting social change? We're using the learning community to address these challenges and hope that it can impact and incentivize and support local research. So thank you for your time.